going to talk about the benefits service in autism beds, and I first got a referral to the Autism Bedfordshire when I got my diagnosis, and the link to the website had some information on what were the services that they could provide, and as long as courses and all the other stuff. So I sent an email because I would like to have help doing my application form for the PIP, and it was really easy and quick. I got an answer over the phone, I believe on the next day or so, and the benefit advisor was from the beginning very helpful, a person that I felt it was easy to talk to, and this was quite an important aspect to me because I think it can get into very personal details when you are talking about benefits application, and it was very important for me that I would feel comfortable. And I also noticed that she was very experienced and patient, and this was also important to me because I would like to have advices on what would be the best way to answer and to get my application into a strong case that would be a valid application and an easier as possible process. And the process itself was quite long in my case because it was during the pandemic. So the waiting lists were very long, and in general, I believe the waiting time can be quite long, but I believe in my process, all the waiting times were a bit longer than normal. And on the start, I looked at the form online. My application was all online, or like the assessment was over the phone or video links, and because the process was all done online, and this was not something very common before the pandemic. I believe now it is. Some of the aspects were new, but even though the benefits advisor was really good in walking me through all the process. So when I saw the form, I felt a bit intimidated because it was quite long, and I believe it is common to feel vulnerable when you are talking about your challenges. So it was really good for me to feel that I was not going through this process alone, that I would have the advisor with me at all times. And I can't lie, the process is very hard. It is difficult. It's a process that, as I said, takes you to a vulnerable place. It can be depressing to be talking about your challenges and how you are not coping with stuff that you would like to. And I think this is not something to hide, because I think it actually makes a statement on how important it is to have the service in the Autism Bedfordshire, to make it accessible for people to get into the process and go through it, because it can be quite challenging and quite stressful. And even the first contact with the form can be quite intimidating. And it was very good to have the benefits advisor going with me through all the questions, making sure I was understanding what the questions were about, and making sure that I was going to put my answers in a way that a person that was reading was going to be able to understand, because it can be challenging to me. I know every person in the spectrum is different, but to me it can be very challenging to put my wordings in ways that neurotypical people will understand what I mean. And experience came really to hand in this aspect, because she was able to give me some tips to try my best not to mask my challenges and my daily life. And I understand that this is something even neurotypical people do, to try and be polite, that we minimize our challenges and we say, oh, we are not too bad. But in this application, it's important for you to use affirmative words. And she explained to me that this was going to be the issues that they were going, the way that they were going to be looking into these aspects, these challenges, that I was able to do it safely, and that I was able to do it repeatedly as often as it would be necessary for me to have a minimum condition on the daily living and mobility, and also in a time that would be considered acceptable. So by understanding that they were going to be looking into these factors and that I would use affirmative words like I can't cope with this most of the time, or on most days I can't do it safely, or this is something I struggle with most of the time. And these affirmative words, instead of saying things like sometimes, that we usually tend to do to try and minimize the challenges we face as an attempt to be polite or not to let people so into our life. And when you are doing the application for the benefits, it's important for you not to mask the daily challenges that you are facing, because this is actually what it is about. This is the moment to be honest about it. So it was really important to have this tip. And after this conversation, I filled the form. My husband and the advisor helped me revising, and I submitted online. And I think I got an answer, a letter answering that the assessment date was scheduled for what will be 5 months after I submitted. So the letter took 4 months to arrive, and then 5 months after I would have my assessment, that the assessment will be over the phone. And I asked to have my husband with me and to record the assessment. And she got me the okay for the recording, and my husband should be with me during all the time that I was speaking with her. This recording was really important because it was also something that later on, because in the end I got an answer, and I had my PIP awarded for the mobility aspect in the standard rate, but on the daily living I didn't have enough points according to the assessor to qualify for any benefit to be awarded. So in this point, it was really important to have the recording, because it was something that the benefit advisor had access to understand better what was that may have been understood in a different way, or that could improve my chances. And at this time that I got the answer, I got in touch with her, and she said that the next step was to go to a mandatory reconsideration, and that for this I could have a form that is called PA4, and I asked this form to the DWP. This is a form that has the assessor findings in detail, and that you can understand what was the reasoning behind it. And this is also another moment that was a bit hard to go through, because it feels a little bit that she was not believing me, the assessor, and she was also using some arguments that I considered weak. Like, for instance, the fact that I got a degree over 20 years ago as a reasoning that I should be able to have cognitive skills to do stuff that I am struggling at the moment. When the assessor was making these notes into the form, the PA4 form, she was also pointing aspects that, in her point of view, were not in my medical history. So having these points not specifically mentioned in my medical history were also reason for her to challenge. And I went back to the benefit advisor with this information, and she was able to listen to the recording, to see all the documentation from the assessor on the PA4 form. And based on this, she wrote a letter to be submitted with my letter as well to the mandatory reconsideration. So we had a month after we got the results to put this mandatory reconsideration into the process, and I submitted with a letter from the Autism Bedfordshire Benefits Advisor on my behalf, my letter, and my husband's also his perceptions on how I was stressed during the interview, and aspects that, because he was in the room and the assessment was over the phone, that the benefit assessor could not maybe realize as well as he. So he also submitted a letter. And it was really important for me to have the benefits advisor letter, because I basically had no idea where to start, even after reading the PA4 form, because it was a long and complex list of information. So her letter was a really good base for me to start with. She was mentioning topic by questions and aspects that they check during the assessment. And she was mentioning what is it that is a different point of view in which we could base our arguments to disagree, and what is it that we consider will be the correct findings. And basing my letter in hers was really helpful, and I was very likely just able to have a letter because I was able to base on hers. And as I said, I submitted these 3 letters online, and after a month, I got an answer, and they refused my mandatory reconsideration. They stood to the assessor's understanding and kept the award only for the mobility and not for the daily living aspects. So I again talked to the benefit advisor, and she helped me understand that the next step in the process will be submitting an appeal and in the online process, and asking for a hearing in the court of law to get my points through a judge and see what his understanding of both parts will be. So after I submitted the appeal request, I got a documentation from the DWP that I believe it is their answer to the court with documents. So these documents had everything they received and everything they also put into the process. So it was a big package with all the information that you could possibly have in the process. So the DWP sent this to the court and a copy to me. I got this on the mailbox after a month, and because at this point the waiting time was the longest in the whole process, I felt really reassured to have the benefit advisor with me, because I felt that I could have been missing something or not checking at the correct place, or expecting a letter on the mailbox when I should have been looking online, and stuff like this that I could have been missing. And it was really reassuring to have the benefit advisor with me to make sure that if I was not paying attention to the right place to look for the information, that she will be there and guiding me to where I should have the information or where I should find the information. So in the end, I waited for 6 months to have a letter from the court with the hearing date. And the hearing date itself was 7 months after I submitted the appeal request. And in this month, between the arrival of the letter with the date of the hearing, the benefits advisor also helped me prepare. We did some mock-ups where she was asking me the questions based all on the aspects that they check on the same ones from the first form. So it is quite a repetitive task. You go over and over again on the same topics. And because it takes a long time, it is sometimes hard to remember how things were when you first applied. And it's important for you to refer to this period, even though during the hearing, the judge itself said that he understands this is hard and it will be okay to mention how it is at the moment, but that they will be paying attention to at the moment I submitted the application, how things were. So in the hearing, I was very scared, I was tense, I was nervous. I had an email of the clerk that would be helping us with the hearing, and I asked on this email for the benefit advisor to also be present in the hearing. And also I informed that my husband will be with me at all the time because I need the reassurance of his presence. And even with all that, I was really nervous. And I think one aspect that was really causing me to feel stressed is that I was afraid of the formality of it. And I think we have a wrong image of those court moves that the judges are referred as your honor and they use wigs, and you feel that everything is so daunting and not at all as we experience in our daily lives. And it was really good when I saw that it was not like that. It was formal, but as I imagine it's a work meeting, so you have certain level of formality, but it's manageable. It's not something that you have to understand specific procedures or terminologies to be able to engage and understand. So I had the hearing. That was on the other side a judge, a medical doctor, and a person that was specialized in the benefits. I believe she is a benefit advisor, and all of them asked me questions that were not necessarily answered before, and some that were answered before in the process. They all made very clear that they had gone through all the paperwork, so they had plenty of information at that stage, but there was some things that they would like to clarify and to have a better understanding. So they asked some questions to which I answered. And I think it was a day or two after that I was able to get the decision. And the decision was that they accepted my appeal and that I was awarded the benefit. Also for the daily living, it was on the standard rate. So even though it was a hard process, a stressful process, I was really happy because the results were on my benefit. So it was worth it. It was a process that was worth it. And it felt that another important aspect is not only to say the things in an affirmative way, but also to be able to answer that you don't know how that will be in case you are not ever doing it or not doing it for a long time without the help of someone, because it felt to me that it was something that was took into consideration. And I got the answer a few days after, but at this moment it's past a month and a half from the hearing and I still have no letter from the DWP. And just past week, what will be a month and a week after the decision, I was able to get the funds into my bank account. And for that, it was necessary for my husband to place a call to the DWP and ask if they had received the court decision, because it was possible that it was there, but with the high influx of work, they were not going through fast enough. But at the moment he placed the call, the court decision went to their financial department, and the payment was placed to me on the same week. So this is something that may be helpful to know as well, that once you have the decision, it's important to get in touch with the DWP to maybe inform them, even though the decision is in their hands, that they have the decision and that you are entitled to a payment. And with all that said, I would definitely recommend, and I can't say enough how helpful it was. I really believe it made a difference, and I really believe it made it accessible. I really think the form and the whole process is complex and daunting, and I felt that it was too much to deal on my own, even with the help of my husband only. And I really think that the service available is an essential part of a person that has challenges to deal with, anxiety and stuff that are vulnerable aspects of the daily life. And it is the difference between making it possible and accessible for a person to be able to go through and to finish the process, and most of all, to get a successful result. So I would definitely recommend, and I really find it a very important service that the Autism Bedfordshire has to offer.